welcome back another Tuesday night, another episode of the Barbecue Pit Sports. We're going to talk about today NFC East because everybody loves the NFC East, one of the patent worst divisions in football for the last few years, and it's most likely going to stay that the same upcoming within the near future. Let's jump right into it. Dallas Cowboys didn't add much, lost a lot. Draft was okay, I'd say. Just throwing it out there. We're going to go over it. They added James Washington, good receiver. They did lose Amari Cooper, though, to Cleveland. They added Carlos Watkins, linebacker Anthony Barr, and Dante Fowler. They also re-signed a bunch of guys: J-Ron Curse, Malik Hooker, Leighton Vander Esch, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dalton Schultz, Jeremy Sprinkle, and Michael Gallup is also coming back. So Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, James Washington, Jalen Tolbert they drafted in the third round. They're going to have a decent receiving core, but I think it takes a big hit losing Amari Cooper. They also lost Cedric Wilson in their receiving room. They lost running back Corey Clement. Tight end Blake Jarwin walked. They lost a bunch of offensive linemen: Ty Nasiki, Connor Williams, Layla Collins. Randy Gregory went to the Broncos. Brent Urban left. Keanu Neal and DeMonte Casey, both at the safety/linebacker position, both left in free agency as well. So they took a big hit in the first round of the draft. They drafted offensive tackle Tyler Smith. He'll probably be in the rotation, I would assume, or starting, maybe not starting. He's like right on the cusp. They got Sam Williams, edge rusher. Of course, we talked about Jalen Tolbert. They got, and they also brought in Jake Ferguson, a tight end, in the fourth round. They had 4 fifth-round picks and a 6th-round pick, and they landed a cornerback from Fresno State, Deron Bland, LSU linebacker Damone Clark, and then a defensive tackle in John Ridgeway out of Arkansas. Kind of a not a say, what do they call it? Like a so-so kind of draft. Like, it was all right. They lost a lot. They didn't add much. I'd say off-season wasn't great, but the draft was all right. Not much happening there for the Dallas Cowboys. New York Giants added a good bit. They drafted extremely well, but they're still looking at being one of the worst teams. They lost Mike Glennon. They lost Devontae Booker. Their fullback Elijah Penny walked. John Ross, Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, offensive lineman Nate Solder, Will Hernandez, Billy Price, and Matt Sakura all left. Defensive lineman Danny Shelton left. Austin Johnson also left. Lorenzo Carter, Benedict McKinney, Reggie Ragland, Jalen Smith, all leaving in free agency. And they also lost key defensive backs in James Bradbury, Jabril Peppers going to New England, and Logan Ryan as well. So I'd say they're kind of weak everywhere. I don't really see – their defense is okay. They don't have a bad defense. But I don't really see – I see a couple bright spots. I like Kadarius Toney. I think he's one of the best, most electrifying after-the-catch guys I've ever seen. And they got a good team. Saquon, hopefully he plays good. Kenny Galladay's coming back. Hopefully he plays good. If they do, they have a decent offense. They did bring in a couple offensive linemen in John Feliciano and Mark Lukowski. Significant upgrades, even though they lost a plethora of guys, and they only brought in those 2 guys. They drafted a few guys as well, but the 2 guys they brought in, light years above Nate Solder, Will Hernandez, Billy Price, or Matt Sakura. They also brought in Richie James, a receiver, a good slot receiver. They brought in Matt Berdias, an extremely fast running back. Jordan Atkins and Ricky Seals-Jones, both coming into the tight end position. Tyrod Taylor is going to be a great backup quarterback for Daniel Jones. I get a lot of flack from my cousin. I hope he listens to this one. Tyrod Taylor is not a bad quarterback. He was never a bad quarterback. He was actually at one point in his career a great quarterback. He dealt with nagging injuries, significant injuries in his first year with the Bills. He tried to come back. He's probably one of the non-luckiest guys that has ever played in the NFL. He had could have been a career-ending injury in Buffalo. He leaves there. He tries to get another chance. I think he went somewhere before Cleveland. I'm so hesitant because I think he did go somewhere before Cleveland. The Cleveland shit is probably the worst part of the whole thing, in my opinion. Okay, so he starts at Baltimore. He gets drafted in Baltimore. I didn't even know that. Doesn't play much in Baltimore. Goes to Buffalo. Balls out for 2.5 years, 3 years. Gets an injury. When I see a ball out, I'm talking about 20 touchdowns, 6 picks, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks, over 3,000 yards both of those seasons. Leaves Buffalo, goes to Cleveland the next year. Plays okay in Cleveland. He gets benched for Baker Mayfield. He still had almost 500 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Nothing great because he got benched early on. They go to Los Angeles. He's like, "Oh, I'm still a starting quarterback. Let me start." They drafted Justin Herbert. So going into the season, he's thinking already, "Oh, they're going to do to me exactly what Baker Mayfield did." First game of the season, I guess he was getting some kind of shot, like a cortisone shot or something like that in his chest. They punctured his lung, and he was out for 4 or 5 games. In those 4 or 5 games, or 2 or 3, however many games he was fucking out for that season, Justin Herbert started playing amazingly, of course, because Justin Herbert. So he was out, and then second season again, he only plays a couple here and there with Los Angeles. Then he goes to Houston last year, and in Houston, touchdown interception ratio not great, 5 to 5, but threw for almost 1,000 yards, and he was the backup for most of the season. They benched him for another young guy, Davis Mills. So now, at this point in his career, he's he's almost 10, 12 seasons in. I think he's kind of accepted the fact that he's going to be a backup and he needs to kind of coach somebody. That's how he's going to be useful. And I think he's going to do a really good job of that with Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones goes down. They got a great quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, to come pick up the slack. First round of the draft, the Giants drafted Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. Top 2 offensive linemen in the draft. Top 3 edge rusher in the draft. Second round, they got Wendell Robinson, who, according to their training camp and their preseason games, has been playing extremely well. Third round, they brought in Joshua Nzundu, an offensive lineman, and then Cordell Flott, a cornerback, which, of course, they need help in the defensive back category with the 2 safeties and one of their best cornerbacks leaving. They had 2 fourth-round picks, 3 fifth-round picks, and a 6th-rounder. They ended up picking a tight end. Or they added some tight end depth. They added some safety depth in the 4th round. And Daniel Bellinger and Dane Belton, who apparently Belton's also been playing really well. They also landed linebacker Micah McFadden and defensive tackle DJ Davidson in the 5th round. So I think if we're looking at drafts, Giants versus Cowboys, Giants definitely had a better draft. I think offseason wise, they might have should have did a little bit more to help their defense with all the pieces that they left, but they did. They spent a good amount of money on the offensive line, so I could see why everything happened the way it did. And I hope they have a good offensive line, and I hope they could kind of turn it around this year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be, bottom 10 teams in the league, but we will see. Only time will tell. Philadelphia Eagles had a great draft day. I consider trading for already NFL players, not the draft. So I'm not going to consider that into looking at when I go over that at the end, who had the best draft. I'm not going to say the Eagles because they traded their pick for A.J. Brown, because I'm just going to consider that a offseason move. Because it did happen in the offseason and it was a transaction. They weren't drafting a player. So they picked up A.J. Brown. That was great. That's amazing. They had one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the league last year. They bring in A.J. Brown. They bring in Zach Pascal. They got Devontae Smith's going to be healthy in the beginning of the season. So they got good wide receivers now. They brought in Hudson Reddick, Pennsylvania, hometown, good edge rusher. They got Kaiser White from L.A. He's great. They brought in James Bradbury from New York, and then they also brought in Jaquiski Tart to kind of solidify their safety position with Anthony Harris. Did they lose Anthony Harris? No, they didn't. They lost Jordan Howard, Brandon Brooks, who retired, Ryan Kerrigan, who retired, Hassan Ridgeway, Gennard Avery, Alex Singleton, Steve Nelson, and Rodney McLeod. They re-signed Anthony Harris, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, Jason Kelsey, Greg Ward, and Boston Scott. So overall, from what they lost to what they signed and what they re-signed, all pluses. All pluses for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a great offseason. They drafted kind of weird, in my opinion. They got lucky in the third round. They got Jordan Davis first round, I guess to kind of fill in the slot for Fletcher Cox when he leaves in a few years, or next year, possibly. Second round, they got Cam Jurgens, offensive line. It should add some good bit of depth to their offensive line, an already pretty good offensive line, might I mention. They lucked up. They got Nakobe Dean in the third round. He could have easily went early second round. They got him in the third. And then in the sixth round, they had 2 sixth-round picks. They got linebacker Karan Johnson and tight end Grant Calaterra. I don't know if either one of those guys are going to make the roster or if they're just going to be practice squad guys, but they did have a decent draft with their first, second, and third round pick. I just think they didn't have many picks, and they didn't have much that they needed to kind of work on in the draft, because with their offseason and with the trade for A.J. Brown, they kind of took care of everything that they need to do. I think that they could use some more offensive line help, losing those 2 guys, or losing Brandon Brooks, I'm sorry, and injuries, things like that. They could use some depth at the offensive line. Miles Sanders, I don't think, is like a league winner at running back, so I think you could use a better running back. I heard they might be going after Kareem Hunt. That would be a smart decision. Other than that, man, I think they're a pretty really well-rounded team. It's on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts now. They surrounded him with a lot of weapons, and now it's time to see if he could play. Washington Commanders officially changed their name this year. They have added Carson Wentz via trade with the Indianapolis Colts, offensive lineman Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner, and then defensive lineman Efe Obanda. They lost Ryan Fitzpatrick, who retired, returnman DeAndre Carter, Adam Humphries, Ricky Seals-Jones, Eric Flowers, Brandon Sheriff, Matthew Ioannidis, Tim Settle, John Bostic, DJ Hayden, Dale Roberts, Landon Collins, and DeShazer Everett. They re-signed in the offseason Bobby McCann, Tyler Larson, Cam Sims, Terry McLaurin, and J.D. McKessick, which are really good re-signs, I would say. And, of course, replacing a Ryan Fitzpatrick with a Carson Wentz is great, because Ryan Fitzpatrick, although he did start over Taylor Heinicke, is kind of like a lateral move from Taylor Heinicke, and then Carson Wentz, they are hoping, is going to be a step up from Heinicke, so he'll probably more than likely start until, or if he even starts shitting the bed. If he doesn't, I mean, great for Carson Wentz. I hope he can find success like he did in Philly that one year. Who knows if it's going to happen. They drafted Jahan Dotson in the first round, a wide receiver out of Penn State, right? Jahan Dotson, Penn State? Yeah, I think Penn State. Defensive tackle for Darian Mathis in the second round. Running back Brian Robinson Jr. in the third round, which, talking about training camp rumors, it's rumored that Anthony Gibson, I'm thinking of the wrong name. Gibson, the running back Gibson that they got. I don't think it's Anthony. Antonio Gibson has been practicing with the punt team, which likely means that they are moving on from him at running back, which could mean that they are going to J.D. McKessick and Brian Robinson. They plan on letting Gibson walk next year in free agency, or whatever the case is going to be with him, trade or what have you. It looks like Brian Robinson Jr. should get a lot of work coming as the rookie there. They have 5 picks between rounds 4 and 7. They got a safety, Percy Butler, in the 4th round, quarterback Sam Howell, and tight end Cole Turner in the 5th. Offensive lineman Chris Paul and cornerback Christian Holmes in the 7th. Decent draft. I don't think they have any huge splashes. I don't think they got significantly better. I don't think they got significantly worse. But I do think that Carson Wentz is dealing with a lot of drama in training camp, and he hasn't been playing well in training camp. Chase Young is going to be injured for the first month of the season, 5-6 games of the season, with some sort of injury. They don't have crazy depth at the wide receiver position. They have a lackluster defense outside of their front 7. I just don't see much happening for Washington here. When we look at strength at schedule, the Giants have the easiest schedule. The Eagles have the second easiest schedule in the league. The Commanders have the fifth easiest schedule in the league, which makes the Cowboys have the ninth easiest schedule in the league. So when we look at it as a whole, NFC East has as a whole, as just with all four teams, has the easiest schedule out of everybody. It's insane to me. It's insane to me that they can give four teams out of the same division that easy schedule. I get it. They got to play inside the division for 6 games, and it's not a great division. But, I mean, you still got to spread it out a little bit, man. You have some of these guys, the Eagles, the Cowboys probably going to be 1 and 2 this season. Those guys should be playing decently hard schedules. But because of that strength of schedule, because of what they added, because of their drafts, this and that, I got the Eagles landing in first at 13-4, the Commanders landing in second at 10-7, Cowboys going to go 8-9, and the Giants also going to go 8-9. I could see them going 7-10, but I got them going 8-9 just because it's weird in the division. I got the Eagles pretty much beating everybody. I got them splitting with Dallas, I think. I got the Commanders splitting with everybody. The Cowboys, I think they split with everybody. I think I might have split every one of these teams. Every one of these teams, I think I split the division. I got the most improved being Philly. A.J. Brown, Zach Pascal, they give more weapons to Jalen Hurts. They got linebacker help. They got the best inside defensive lineman in the draft. They brought in defensive back help with Bradbury and Trubisky Tart. They helped every single part of their team that needed it. Now it's just up to those guys to go out and execute. And then with the best draft, of course, I picked the Giants. So like I said, top 2 offensive linemen, top 3 edge rusher, all within the first round. They got they addressed wide receiver and cornerback in the later rounds. And I think it was just overall a really good draft for the Giants. I don't want to put too much of a knock on the Giants. I don't want to say, the Giants, they suck, this and that. I don't want to be here shitting on the Giants. The Giants had a good offseason. They brought in good players in the draft. They need to stay healthy. Saquon Barkley needs to show that he can stay healthy. And then they just need to execute, man. They need to execute, and they need to, next season, hopefully, if Daniel Jones isn't working, grab another quarterback in the draft. Then they need to improve their defense. That's it. Defend the safeties, the corners, and then I think that, personally, I think their linebackers could use a little bit of help too. I think the defensive line is kind of solid, but again, any improvements is going to be good for the New York Giants because they need it. So, until next time, you guys stay barbecued. You guys know what the fuck it is. Barbecue Pit Sports, boy.